I was born, and on my birth certificate, it's Zarifa Harb. Well, now it's Zarifa Elizabeth Harb, and I was born June the 22nd, 1933, in Lexington, Kentucky.
And do you know which hospital that was?
I think it was St. Joseph's Hospital. Yeah, it was St. Joseph's Hospital, I believe. Well, my mother and father were immigrants here. My father was here for quite a while before my mother came. My mother didn't come till 1929, and she brought my brother David with her. He was 6 years old, and that was it. And my father had been here for a while. I always heard the story that my father came over on a cattle boat, but I don't know whether that's true or not. But anyway, then they had David already. Then they had my sister Louise, and they had myself, and then my sister Neda Harb. Well, I know my father's full name was Badges Dahoud Harb, and his father's name was Dahoud Harb. He died in Pennsylvania and was buried there, but that's about all I know about them.
Okay. And your mother?
My mother, I don't know much about her background. I know her brother was Albert Harb, and his wife had died, and he married another lady, and they had siblings. But that's all that I know of my mother's family.
And your mother's name was what?
Nijba Harb.
Okay.
Well, it was a good neighborhood. It was not the greatest, maybe, but it was a nice neighborhood, and we went to the Catholic schools. My father had a pool hall that he ran, and then my brother, when he was older, he had a grocery store. He married Irene Harb, and they had a grocery store together, and they had children, of course, too. And
this was still in Lexington?
That's in Lexington. My sister got married to Fred G. Harb and went to Detroit. And then I got married and came here. And then my younger sister, Neda, got married to Mafid Harb, and she still lives in Detroit. Well, school was very good. My father was a very strict man. We didn't do a lot there, but we had cousins there. My first cousin and Uncle John Harb, his brother, and their families, and we always went on picnics and had good times there. It was a good time growing up. Of course, we didn't have a whole lot, but we didn't miss it. We were fine. My uncle, Albert Harb, and his family were there. And he had Yasmin Harb, and she married to Joe Harb. It was entwined. I hope you can cut some of this stuff out.
We're going to keep all of it.
Oh, God.
So you can spill the beans. It's okay.
Well,
all Romola is used to that. So this is nothing new.
Well, that's about all I can tell you. But it was a good growing up period. And then I got married young. I wasn't quite 18 when I got married. My sister married at 16 and moved to Detroit. I'm 5 years older than my younger sister, so she was still at home. And then my father died, and David and Irene took care of us. Like I said, I got married and came here.
So so you got married to who?
I got married to John Harb, and we called him Johnny. He came over to the United States as Ibrahim Harb, but he changed his name to Johnny Harb after his dad. His father brought him to Lexington because his father knew me, and he knew I was there, and so he brought him there. And Johnny and my brother David were very good friends. How that happened, I don't know, but they were. And he welcomed the fact that for me to get married to Johnny. And I ended up marrying him, of course, and had a wonderful life with him. And then David died, and Johnny died, my sister died, so that just left me and my younger sister. Well, my mom was a great cook, and my father would have anybody and everybody over all the time. Any salesmen that came through were at our house. And then they would have poker parties too, and the men all enjoyed that. And I don't know, it was just a very nice time there with them. I can remember my mother and father sitting out on the porch in the mornings and having their Arabic coffee, and they enjoyed that part. I don't know what else I can tell you about it. It was great. We had a lovely little home. We had, my mother had chickens, she had rabbits, she had a garden, we had trees, peach trees. It was just very good there. But the dishes she would bake a big turkey at Thanksgiving, and they would eat the whole thing. They were good eaters. And we had a lot of stuffed squash and grape leaves. We had a wonderful grape leaves orchard outside. And she'd always pick the grape leaves and preserve them, and we always had them. And she'd make all the Arabic dishes were great that Mama made. She was a very good cook. She even made the sweets, and she'd make them tumbuk. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's a dessert. And she'd make her own dough, that thin dough, and put the cheese in it herself. She'd make her own cheese. I mean, it was really country living, I guess you'd call it, but it was a very good life.
Well, since, if you don't mind, since we'll diverge a little bit, since your sister and brother are no longer with us, maybe you can tell us a little bit about their lives. Let's start with Uncle David.
Well, he was a Marine, and he had a hard time doing that because he was in the war. But then he became an insurance salesman, and he did wonderful with that. And then he had a grocery store. He had furniture. He had furniture, building furniture store, and he had three sons and one daughter. Didn't get to know his daughter very well. He died at a young age, at 48. He had heart problems, just like my father. My father died young also, but not that young. After I moved to Knoxville, he also came, David and his family. And he did well. He did all right. Like I said, he died young. He didn't get to enjoy much of his life here.
So he his first business was in Lexington, then he moved here with his family. You'd already
Yes, and then he went into the insurance business, and he did very well with it. He went to Germany with it and everything. But then he came back home and started another business.
He married Aunt Irene.
Yes, who was John S. Harb's daughter.
And who were their kids? David's kids.
David had David, Buddy, we call him. And then he had Stephen, and he had Michael. And then the last one was Helen. And like I said, she didn't get to know her dad too long. But that was their 4 children.
And then let's move then to Aunt Louise.
Aunt Louise married Fred G. Harb from Detroit. And they stayed in Detroit for quite a while, and then they moved here. And she had, her oldest daughter was Yvonne, and her next daughter was Sherry Ann, and then she had Tina. And they all still live here in Knoxville. They're all married and happily married and doing well.
And they grew up in on Orlando.
Right.
Yeah. And
which was not far from Fairmont. It was just down the street from there.
Everyone was close together.
Right.
Yeah. And Uncle Fred was in the insurance business.
He was in State Farm, and he did wonderfully well. And they had a good life, and then he died, and then my sister died. And
Uncle Fred's parents lived here also.
yes, they moved from Knoxville to here also. It seems like everybody that married here, their parents would follow. And that's what happened to them, too.
And they were on Emerald as well.
Right. I was married in Knoxville. I came to Knoxville and got married here. I stayed at Uncle Aunt Alice's house until I got married. I was here for a couple of weeks, I guess, and then we married here at St. John's Episcopal Church.
When you got to Knoxville, tell us who was
Well, there was no one here except Brahim Harb, Wadia Harb, and John Harb. The three men. John and Wadia were brothers, and Brahim was a cousin. And that's all that was here until I came.
Tell us their wife's name that were here with them.
There was Brahim and, well, I should start with Uncle John. Uncle John and Jamila Harb. And then there was Wadia and Alice Harb. And Brahim and Bahia Harb. I almost forgot. And then after that, my brother moved here. And it seems like one came after the other. After my brother moved here, his father-in-law and wife moved here with their children. And one came after the other. So we had quite a big community here after I got married.
Was everyone living close by?
Yes, we all lived in North Knoxville pretty much. It was a very close community. And then when we had the Romulo American Club, of course, we had a clubhouse, and we had meetings, and we had picnics, and we did everything there was to do. It was very good at that time. And our children grew up together, and that's what I liked about it. My husband had a gas station to start with, and then he went into Harb's Carpet Center with his father and uncle. Uncle Brahim was a traveling salesman, so he never had a business here, right here. Our first home was in North Knoxville on not Broad, Fairmont. And my father-in-law lived on Emerald, and which was right on the other street behind us. And then my brother-in-law, and then Uncle Wadia was on Orlando, I think. No, it wasn't Orlando. What was that name? Oglewood, that's right. My sister lived on Orlando when she moved here, which wasn't far also. Everyone sort of lived there. And then the Saws came and the Jabrons came. We just had a full community then. It was wonderful. The kids were all growing up together still. And the community was wonderful. And they all went to the same school, McCampbell School, to start with. Of course, they all moved away later on, but at first, all through junior high school, they were at McCampbell. They all had a good time with each other, and we all still stay together. We eat dinners together. We were close by enough to have dinners together, and it was wonderful there, too. I don't know what else I can tell you about it, except we all had a good time.
Well,
it was a lot easier living then than it is now.
Well, bet. What about, so tell us a little bit about Uncle Johnny. You said he had first a gas station.
A gas station when I married him.
Mm-hmm. And that was on?
Broadway.
Right on Broadway.
Right next to the Harb store. Mm-hmm. But then eventually he left that and went into the Harb drug cleaning store with his father and uncle. Well, he first went to, I think it was he was actually in the Army before I married him, but he was in Florida for a while. And I can't remember the other place he was stationed at, but somewhere in Florida. I don't know where it was. But he was honorably discharged, of course. He served for a little while, but there was no war going on then. So that was good. Well, I know that he started out in the Army, but he ended up in the Air Force. I don't know how. And he was a tail gunner, and then he was a medic. It was very interesting how he moved from one place to another at the time.
Okay, and then so you raise your kids, a lot of cousins
Mm-hmm.
in the area, had the Romola Club,
Right.
and tell us a little bit about, just to give people, of course I know, but people who may just be watching this that didn't know Knoxville, like tell us a bit how it would be like if y'all went to a picnic up in the mountains or something.
Oh, we would go for breakfast in the mountains, which we loved. We'd all meet up there and have breakfast together, or we would always have lots of games for the kids, and they loved playing in the creeks. And sometimes we'd stay for the lunches too. We'd go up for lunch or dinner. But it was a good community that wasn't too big, but yet it wasn't small. It was good enough for all of us to be together and enjoy ourselves, and we did. Those times I miss. Well, the club wasn't too far away. It was on on Washington Pike, and it was a nice clubhouse. Had lots of nice grounds around it, and we had good picnics there even, and Easter egg hunts and Christmas parties, and everybody was welcome, and they all came, and it was a good time.
Past that, you all moved, like some of the other families, you all moved away from that Broadway, Emerald,
Right.
Fairmont area.
I guess we were the first to do that too. We moved away and came out to off Alcoa Highway on Martha Washington Heights, and then George Harb had gotten married, and he moved out here. Uncle Adele moved out here. They all started moving out this way. We weren't as close. It was a little further away from each other, but it was still nice then. We had maybe 4 or 5 families out here.
Tell us about your kids.
My kids, well, Johnny was the oldest. Goodness, I can't believe he's going to be 70. And he took over the Harb's Carpet Center when everybody else was on the way out. And Shirley was a nurse, and she became more than a nurse because she opened up a cardiac in Nashville. And then she came back here. She traveled some. She married Michael Serena, that she met at St. Mary's Hospital. And they moved to Miami, and they moved back to Nashville, and then they moved back here. And now they're here in Knoxville. And then Linda married David Hauser, and he is from here. And he was with the UPS company, and he went all the way up to the top and retired with the UPS, and they still live here now. He traveled a lot at first. But then there's Philip Harb, which was married and divorced, and he has 2 great children, too.
And you didn't tell us who Johnny was married to.
Oh, I didn't. That was to Elizabeth, or Libby Harb, and she's wonderful. And she had 1 daughter, Maria. Linda had 2 sons, David Michael and Matthew. And everybody's married and happy now, and their children.
And Shirley has 2 kids.
Yes, she does. I couldn't believe. She has a boy and a girl. One lives here, and one lives in Orlando, Florida. And she has Well, let's say this. I have 7 great-grandchildren through those children. 7 grandchildren and 7 great-grandchildren.
Let's talk about the convention. Uncle Johnny was chairman of that convention in '68.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about that. It was at the Andrew Johnson Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us how that convention was, and the keynote actually was Howard Baker
Yes.
during that, which was quite a milestone at the time because the conventions had never had that high profile as
Right,
before.
right.
So that was Howard Baker was the speaker then. At that
Right,
convention.
right. I see. I forgot that, but I remember now.
Yeah, and Senator Baker speaks very highly of the Harb family.
Yes.
Whenever I would do interviews with him, also he always mentioned that.
Well,
There was a good relationship.
there really was.
And but from what I hear from even from people that came to that convention, they had a great time.
They still
I
did.
talked to people from Birmingham and Jacksonville, and there was actually a lot of marriages that came out.
Yes, I think there were. Johnny put his whole heart into it.
And then, of course, that was '68, and then in '92 there was another convention. I mean, sorry, in '85
Yeah.
there was another convention, and then again in '92 there was another convention.
We tried our best. We did what we could.
They were all great conventions.
I think so.
I think everyone thinks they were the best of all time.
They probably do. You have to toot your own horn, too, because nobody else is going. Well, no, I can't say that because everybody says Knoxville was a great place to have it.
Now, surely there's something I haven't asked you that, what would you want, something, I tell you what, something your great-grandkids may want to know about you or your family that they may not know.
I don't know. I'm sort of an open book. I think everybody knows everything about me.
Well, I know that my mom one time told me a story about how when she first came here, of course you were here, and I think, I don't know whose house it was, but someone commented on how great Betty's bread was.
Oh my
Or
gosh.
it may have been Dad, and then so then on, Mom took it to herself to make some bread.
She made great bread too.
Yeah, your mother still makes, well, she doesn't do it anymore. I don't either, but that was something we did then.
Mm-hmm.
All of them did it. But I baked my bread on rocks, and I think I was the only one that did that. That's the way my mother did it. It's on rocks, river rocks.
What else would you, that maybe we haven't touched on that you might want to tell us maybe about your life or Uncle Johnny's life? Or
All I can tell you, I've had a good life. And Johnny was a wonderful man.